Cool. So we're back.
So yeah, we took a little break, and we're gonna do a little segue to talking about parenting.
Yeah. I consider myself a step parent, and this is Ace.
Hi.
This is my kid. As a non-binary parent, I actually go by mom. And interestingly enough, with my identity, I feel like I'm more gender fluid, right? And the only thing I'm fluid between like really non-binary center and woman, but I don't like being called girl or lady, and woman. Sometimes I don't like being called a woman, but sometimes I find it empowering, right? And I find the term mom and mother empowering.
Okay.
So
So that's where the fluidity comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason why, even though I identify as a non-binary person, I'm okay with mom. Whereas Jessie, we call Yiddy. Is our parental term.
Okay.
For Jessie.
We got it from their late partner used to call them Yiddy, so it kind of just went on to me, so I call them Yiddy now.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep. And their late partner was Yachty.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is cute.
So you're mom.
So I'm mom. And I can go into all sorts of interesting things about becoming a parent, like when, your kid's at 8, right? Was when I sort of came into it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The first time Jessie and I dated was when they were 1.5 to 2.5.
Okay.
Which
so
is
you've been in and out of Ace's life.
Yeah.
Ace does not remember me from we call it part 1 and part 2. Is what we call it. They don't remember me from part 1.
Yeah.
But we have pictures, which are fun.
You are a fun family.
Yeah.
I gotta say that.
I think we're a fun family.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you agree with that?
I think so.
Good.
You guys are pretty chill.
We're pretty chill?
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I come into this too. I've always wanted to parent. I wanted to be a parent.
Great.
Right?
Great.
And I actually eventually would like to have a baby myself.
Oh, okay.
If it makes sense.
Are you going to go the same kind of route where you get a donation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were going to do the
plan.
same thing. Yep. That's our plan.
Yeah.
And
I've already kind of got experience with being a big, older sibling. Because there's a kid on my bus who's a kindergartner. She really, really likes me. She's apparently calling me mom now.
Oh, really?
You're a grandma.
I'm a grandma.
You're a grandma.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Some people, they kind of collect aunties and uncles.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be, like, blood related. And I think that's kind of a good tradition, too.
We sort of have that,
Yeah.
don't we? You have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a lot of family that isn't really blood related.
Yeah.
I also, coming into this, right, with my occupational therapy degree, right, Jessie and Ace both struck me really hard as being really neurodivergent, and the state we were in, which your Yiddy doesn't want to say the name of the state we were in.
For privacy reasons.
Yep. Was not very good. The medical system was not very good. And I'm a huge advocate. And part of us coming here, what was so huge was how quickly we were able to get Ace diagnosed.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising to me too.
So had you noticed some differences, but doctors weren't taking that seriously, or what was going on in the other state?
So they have what many would call, and I'm putting quotations because I hate functioning labels.
Okay.
High functioning autism.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I heard that there was kind of a controversy around that, like high functioning versus low functioning. I don't know much about that. Could you explain that just very briefly?
Sure. So, functioning labels are really awful because it entirely has to do with how other people are perceiving you.
Okay.
Right? And so, if other people think you're just fine, then you're high functioning.
Oh, I see.
But you probably aren't just fine.
Right.
And there are so many levels, right? And actually, the more high functioning you are, the more like you get a lot of like psychological trauma and exhaustion, a burnout they call it, autistic burnout, all of
I
that.
had to take a lot of breaks today in school because I kept having those.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you having where burnout would be like a prolonged episode where you having like sensory meltdowns. Yeah.
Like I kept fidgeting around, kept moving around a lot.
Yeah. So
what's your challenge as a mom of some child that's neurodivergent and maybe has some other challenges?
You know what? I don't find that particularly challenging because I relate to it so well. What's more challenging is coming into a family that's established and seeing patterns.
Oh, okay.
And, like issues that are like maybe like generational trauma, cyclical things.
Right.
And figuring out how to navigate that, I find is the more challenging thing.
Yeah.
Because
I think anybody can actually relate to that, because that's also like in friendships as well. You can find that, or coworkers, yeah.
And so that, and I end up feeling like I end up triangulating myself a lot. And I have to get way better at holding boundaries and not trying to smooth things over in both directions and overextending myself in that way.
So you put yourself in too much of a mediator kind of role.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is something I've always done my entire life. And so that's my work, right?
Yeah, that's your challenge.
That's
no,
okay.
It's fine. Everything is kind of moving here. We have, just like every other interview I have, everything's on boxes and we've moved things away. Because I'm in somebody's home. This is a office. So, very
it's my
busy.
office.
That's right. Yeah. How about you? Let's talk about you for a minute. You can identify yourself in any way that you want. You can hold back information about yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Well, my name's Ace. I go by she, they pronouns.
Could you come up a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I need to repeat that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I,
Why do you use both she and they?
Well, I used to go by they, them pronouns, but people kept, beating themselves up about accidentally calling me she.
Okay.
So I kind of just changed them to she, they for people-pleasing things. But then kind of just, I go by it now, not for people-pleasing reasons. Yeah.
And are you in school or are you homeschooled?
I'm in school.
Okay.
It's very tiring. I don't like it.
Okay.
Not a lot of my teachers are very understanding of me having autism. And sometimes when I'm really overwhelmed and stuff, I go nonverbal, and some of my teachers don't like that and try to make me talk, even though I can't.
Right. Do you tell them that, do you ever have conversations with your teachers, or maybe as in a parental role, that sometimes this is just what you have to do?
Yeah.
So they're aware of that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think that's probably...
that was yours?
I think that was my phone.
Okay.
Anyway.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I know that when they go nonverbal at home and we really need to figure something out, we try to use multiple ways of communicating.
We're learning sign language.
But then we also, you have a phone, and I will bring you paper and pencil or pen, and we will just try to find any way possible that we can communicate.
Yeah.
Because I understand going nonverbal. That happens to me sometimes too.
Yeah.
So,
or sometimes, I'm mad. I don't want to talk. I just want to calm down for a bit. I just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
Luckily, though, a lot of my classmates are very understanding.
Oh, good.
Of what I have to go through. And some of my classmates also have high-functioning autism. Yeah. Sorry.
You're fine.
and I've made friends because of that. And I've found people in my school who like understand me, and I'm able to talk to them about my problems, and they can talk to me about their problems, and we understand them with each other and relate to each other.
Good. So you have some support at school.
Yeah.
Even if the teachers aren't so great sometimes.
It's only some of the teachers.
Okay.
Though most of the teachers are pretty understanding.
Great.
I'd say their school's pretty good.
Good.
Actually,
Good.
as far as all that goes.
Is that another benefit of living here in Colorado?
A big reason we moved here.
Yeah. Great.
A big reason we moved here.
Great.
I just did it. A big reason we moved here was for school reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And where we were living before was not going well for you for school, was it?
No one really understood that I had troubles with learning, speaking, having friends, and anytime...
How about your the pronouns that you use? Were you using they back then, or is that newer?
Preferably they, but I didn't really care if people called me a she.
But back in the other state where you were living, were you using those kinds of pronouns?
Yeah,
I
was preferring they, but wouldn't really care if people called me she.
Okay.
You came up with your name.
Yeah.
That when I came back in the year before we moved here.
So you changed your name.
Yeah, Ace is not my legal government name. I'm not going to state my legal government name because I don't feel like it.
Yeah, you don't have
to. That's why they're called dead names, Ace. Yep. It can be dead if you want it to
be. And when I came up with it, I didn't really have a meaning for having it be Ace. Mm-hmm. It kind of just came up into my brain. And I was like, hold on. I think this fits me better a lot more than my dead name did. So I was like, could I be called this from now on?
Who did you ask?
My teacher.
Okay.
For the last month of school, we did this ABCs thing, and for N was pick your own silly name, and I chose mine as Ace because I thought it sounded really cool and fit me better than my dead name did. And I asked and when I stood up to ask to say it, I was very nervous because, it's kind of scary. And
but for you, it wasn't a silly name.
It wasn't a silly name. It was please call me this name.
Yeah.
But in the middle of me saying, can I be called this for the rest of the year? In the middle of my sentence, my teacher just said no and made me sit down.
Wow.
Yeah. My teacher wasn't a great person.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about your peers, the kids in class? Did they respect that?
Not in the state we used to live in.
Okay.
They weren't very understanding. I got bullied a lot. I got called weird and crybaby and stuff because I was very sensitive. And I had really weird ideas of things and weird ideas of coming up with things. So I got called weird because I wasn't normal like all the other kids. Normal as in neurotypical.
Okay.
But I didn't know that I was neurodivergent. So I couldn't say, I'm sorry, I have autism. I can't really help it that well. But I kind of just had to.
And you shouldn't have to do that all the time.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and that what we really liked about the culture in general out here is that difference is embraced. Mm-hmm. Our first year here, I remember you being real excited because people thought you were cool because of your differences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a big thing for why we moved here. Just that cultural difference. I mean, to have a school, even with the whole mess with them not enforcing mix for Jessie, to have a school say we want trans teachers, it is different. It is different out here.
Yeah.
Right? So
even though there still needs to be work done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's always room for improvement with everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've noticed that a lot of organizations will put on their websites, etc., that they are welcoming or affirming of people's identities and that sort of thing. Sometimes it doesn't quite come into action, but at least it's starting. It's starting. Yeah.
So I actually work for my call center job.
Okay.
Is actually for a major medical system out here. Mm-hmm. And because I had my foot in with my master's and everything, I got it right away, right? I do scheduling and prescriptions and things like that, and talk to patients on the phone about those sort of things. And it's refreshing that even that feels different out here.
Really?
Like, there's things within even the, like, electronic system that are enforced when it comes to trans individuals, which I do scheduling for endocrinology, actually. So I do interact with a lot of diabetics, but also all of our trans patients. Right? And it's respected. It's all up in the chart. People get it right. And I'm part of the DEI board, which usually means
What does that stand for?
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay.
And it's actually nice because they actually do things here. It's not
just on paper.
No.
Okay.
It's not just fluffy.
Yeah.
Right? We actually do initiatives and run events, and it matters, and it's nice.
Great.
And it actually reflects in the rest of the company. And like, one of the first things I did as part of the DI board was we did a unconscious bias training. And I was able, as part of the committee, to help edit that training, which was so neat.
Right.
Anyway.
Because sometimes the people who come up with these things, like, they have good intentions, but sometimes they don't have the experience to back that up. So they don't understand the nuances. And sometimes those nuances aren't just nuances. They're actually a really big deal.
Yeah.
So it's really important that somebody has who also is experienced professionally, but then also has the personal experience to look at that. It's really important.
Which our DEI board is really actually diverse.
Great.
Like, actually, like, it's
not just a bunch of white lesbian and gay people.
Yeah, no. We have
white, wealthy, and gay.
A lot of different cultures and ethnicities and everything. It's really good.
Yeah, when I see some boards that are just like white, wealthy, gay people, I'm like, I don't know about this. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Ace? About your identity, what you want to do in your life, anything?
Well, I really like animals, and I really want to work with them.
Okay.
I'm thinking about just I want to just work with animals, maybe be a vet. I might want to, like, own an animal shelter. That would be pretty cool.
Okay.
Just animals.
Yeah, great.
In general.
Animals are their special interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed you had some pets here, which is great. Yeah.
I'm definitely a cat person.
Okay.
Your phone case is all cats.
Yeah.
I could hold your phone up and then it doesn't need to be edited. Look at this.
Oh, yeah.
They got this for their birthday.
Lots of little cats on it. Oh, and that one is almost like a
yin and yang.
Yeah. That's cute.
It's their birthday. It was last weekend.
Saturday.
Yeah. We won't say the actual date, but it was a week ago.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So.
I have one more thing I want to add while you're still here.
Yeah.
Did you know that you're, like, kind of the reason I came out as non-binary?
Huh.
I was having a conversation with your Yiddy, and this was when I was still living in the RV, right? And I was in Indiana, and I was on the phone with your Yiddy, and I was like, I think it's so great that the kids these days, like, can feel free to do different things with their pronouns, like, be, like, she, they, like Ace's. Like, if I was Ace's age, I would be she, they.
Yeah.
And then Jesse was like, why not do it now? And I was like,
there you go.
Oh, you have a point. And then it just, my brain exploded. But it was because I was thinking of you and how I wanted to be like you.
Wow, that's great. So you kind of mentored your parent here.
Unintentionally.
Yeah.
One time, when I still went by they, them pronouns, Someone told me that I needed to be a certain age before I could change my pronouns, which I thought was a load of bullcrap.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just told them I can do what I want. It's my life.
That's right.
Don't let anyone judge you for how you feel, how you look, just how you. Just
I love it.
be yourself and don't care about what any people think.
Free range kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I love it.
Oh, we have the coolest kid. I probably have a bias, but I don't know. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I was, as empowered as you are, as, as self-expressive as you are at your age. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to speak out for yourself. A lot of people want to help you, and if people don't, then they're not worth your time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Lovely.
And you being yourself, that even helped me be more myself, too. And that's why it's important that we all try to be ourselves if we can.
I like to tell myself that when I get stressed or something.
Yeah. I love that.
And it's okay to not be perfect. No one's perfect. It's okay to have some flaws. It's okay to not be the best person in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're all flawed in some way, right? We're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
So if we're punishing ourselves for that, it's very strange. Yeah.
Exactly. Good job. Okay.
All right, let's take a break again. All right.
Sounds good.
And they haven't taken their melatonin yet either.
Okay, so we took a little break and brought the other parent in again, and I was wondering, we were talking about earlier about kind of the vibe of this area and how it's different, and your art practice, and just in general, I'd like to talk about art a bit. What do you think?
Sure, I'd love that.
Yeah. Ta-da! No.
It's actually, this has been, like, me moving out here has been a real big part of, like, a healing journey for me.
Okay.
And a lot of that has been healing the, like, illegitimacy of art I had growing up, where I wasn't encouraged to do it. I was told to stop doing it. I was told that unless I became, like, some sort of Renaissance painter, or maybe, like, a book illustrator maybe is a legitimate form of art, but, like, other than that, like, my parents said that wouldn't make money and it wasn't viable. I never...
art for art's sake is just... Forget about it.
I didn't take a class until I was an adult, and I still struggle to, like... I'm a really good artist in, like, a Xerox machine way, but I struggle to, like, legitimize my own thoughts and creativity and turn it into something.
Okay.
And so coming here where it's supported and just sort of passively legitimate helps me get into a mind space where I feel, like, safe and...
What kind of art do you do, by the way?
I mainly draw. I have a few things around this room that are mine, but I'm
gonna show it off.
When I was pregnant, we were having Ace. I did a webcomic about being a
comic.
Yeah, a webcomic on Tumblr about being a non-binary person who was pregnant and trying to have a baby. And like I said with the contract,
what time period was this?
This was 2012. So like I said with the contract, like it wasn't really a thing yet.
Okay.
There wasn't really a whole lot of people talking about people who weren't female identified having a child yet.
Okay.
So that was sort of a way of having like a autobiographical sort of comic.
Yeah. I gotta say I love those. The ones that I see out there, like I believe there's one called Assigned Male. Mm-hmm. That one's I really
actually
like
know that artist.
Yeah. I love how there's like this social issues are infused in it, and it talks very much the language of the community itself.
Yeah, I did a panel with Sophie. Sophie is the person who does Assigned Male.
Yeah.
Of non-binary and trans comic creators in the city that I was living in at the time. So
great.
It's really it's nice to have that sort of representation, and being able to like tell a story graphically is something that always really appealed to me. Like my like lifelong project I would love to do is I would love to make like an autobiographical graphic novel about some of the things that I've been through, or a graphic
and
novel.
You have all the skills to put into it, like writing and probably drawing, and totally.
So that was my like big pride project that I did while I was pregnant, and since then I've been sort of like blending art with activism. My friend that lives out here that I mentioned earlier is an activist for disability rights, and we started a website where she was writing like an ABCs of disability, and for every letter it was like an important person of history, or something to know about being an advocate, and I illustrated all of that alphabet. And so like that was something I was really proud of doing in the pandemic, and just, you know, finding a way to find a voice through that.
And people love sharing that sort of thing too.
What's the name of that website?
Firstpersonwithdisabilities.com.
Okay, there you go. I will link to it.
Thanks. It's a great website that she's also used for, like, if you notice a business that isn't ADA compliant, or there's something there that doesn't make it accessible, it's a website that's sort of designed to give you a template of how to report that, or write a letter to it, and sort of help fix the things in your community that aren't accessible for disabled people.
Yeah, that's nice that there's kind of a template that somebody can kind of, or a form that somebody can use, because when that sort of thing happens, it's very stressful. And what do you do?
Yeah, and you don't have no idea where to start. And so
especially if you're poor.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
So like having that sort of resource has been really nice, and we've even talked about developing like business cards for like people that will like casually say something that's ableist and without really thinking about it, and just sort of like handing them a card. It's like, hey, you did an ableism. Maybe go to this website and like learn a little bit about it, and like do better next time.
So that sounds very gentle.
Yes.
And sort of educational at the same time.
Yeah, teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like I think that education is going to help a lot of people who don't have empathy for a different type of life that they're never going to like live, at least be able to understand it, and understand sort of where those people are coming from, why they have the values that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other projects coming up? And I'm wondering, you mentioned that the city and the state have a lot of money for art. Have you ever tapped into that, or have you done any grant writing? Or...
my friend and I applied for that grant for the bus stop thing that we unfortunately didn't get, but we've now we know the process, and we know that they're doing something like almost all of the time for something in public art in the city. So Katrina has links and resources to all of that. She's very connected in this community. So just sort of having it out there and knowing that we want to do a project together, I think it's putting us in a good spot for it. So
is she better at doing like that paperwork kind of?
Yeah. Okay. She's
awesome.
When we were growing up, she was part of like the theater kid group and was a really amazing stage manager. So all of the logistics and everything, she's amazing at. She's a fantastic writer.
All these things are different skills.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And then currently I'm working on a project for someone who used to be a boss of mine when I worked at Best Buy. You were talking about someone who went from like bureaucracy to inserting some woo into something. And this person she was my boss at Best Buy. She ended up working at corporate Best Buy in Minneapolis for several years, right next to the CEO, and she burnt out. She bought a camper van, and now she is an international Enneagram coach.
Okay.
And
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
Enneagram's cool.
Okay.
It's sort of like a Myers-Briggs personality test, except it's a lot more in depth, and it's not just sort of saying, well, like, or like a horoscope, like I'm a Gemini, and that means this. An Enneagram.
I always figure that stuff is for like choosing your career or getting a date.
Right. Exactly. But with Enneagrams, it's sort of like. It's a numbered system, but it's sort of like where your brain comes from and the sort of values that it has. And then depending on if you are in a healthy state of mind or an unhealthy state of mind, your brain's going to go in a couple of different directions.
Okay.
And so...
So it's for more self-knowledge.
Yeah, it's for self-knowledge. And now she is an international coach, which is kind of doing what Jade's dream was, in her camper van, doing this online.
Okay.
But on an international scale, working with the guy who, like, invented Enneagrams.
Okay, great.
And she's starting a workbook for corporations to pick up and sort of integrate that into their community with their employees. And she hired me to illustrate that.
There you go. Paying job.
So that's my next thing is I'm working on an Enneagram workbook for her.
You could put that on your resume.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I like Enneagram a lot. It's actually backed a lot, resource wise, technically, scientifically, it's backed.
Okay.
Versus Myers-Briggs is a little less so.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And at Best Buy, we had... It was almost like Myers-Briggs, but they labeled customers by different names. A Jane is a soccer mom who's really interested in, the best features. And this is a John, and the John is looking for the cheapest thing. And, that was how we were supposed to, connect with our customers.
Yes.
And at some point, she was like... This is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm not actually learning anything about anyone. Right. And so, finding
and it just sounds awful.
Right? It's just throwing people... I'm non-binary.
It sounds a little predatory.
Exactly. You can't... And as someone who, literally cannot be put in, any boxes, I feel like, it made no sense to me.
Yeah.
And also being autistic, I was like, I can't follow this.
Yeah. Why be one thing when you can be everything?
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you all, since there is a lot of art going on in the city, do you go to events? Do you have community around that?
Oh, yeah. So there's a few galleries that will do both, smaller things for just local artists as well as, larger grand scale things. There's also a ton of immersive art here.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
So this
You gotta do some immersive art while you're here.
At the risk
I'm a cabin dweller and a loner, so I don't know.
At the risk of sort of giving away where we are, it's a city that is one of the hosts of an exhibit called Meow Wolf.
Okay.
Which is an immersive art thing that sort of builds an alien fantasy world that you then go into. You're encouraged to touch the art and interact with the employees who are now characters in that world.
Oh.
There's a lore and story and secrets to find out, and and you just you enter this world.
So it's like a live action role playing.
Exactly, but it's a giant space. It's like an entire world.
Okay.
And it's done by hundreds of artists. It's in a few cities around the country right now, and they're building more.
And each one's different.
Yeah.
But they're all connected in story. So it's become a special interest of mine, but the idea of immersive art or going into a place where you're surrounded by fantasy and imagination and getting to interact with that, I think is a really healing thing. I wanted to do art therapy. If I had wanted to do anything as a kid, it would have been that.
Well, you could still do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like I am, just not with a degree.
Yeah.
But going out into that space and interacting with art, it sort of reintroduces a type of play that I don't feel like adults have had access to, and I don't think that kids have a lot of access to either. There's not a lot of places for kids to go hang out and be imaginative, and there's definitely not places for adults to do that.
Or get dirty.
Exactly.
As a occupational therapist, which I'm not, right?
But you used to be.
But I am. Mm-hmm. I have a degree.
Yes.
And I like to say I love it as a career and I hate it as a job.
Okay.
So a lot of occupational therapy, science, and everything, I think it's great, right? Play is important, okay? Play is so important. Even, far into adulthood.
Yeah.
And when we cut play off, it actually affects our health. We decline, we are unhappy, you get more psychological issues, you need to play.
And I think that, especially since 2020 and the pandemic, I very firmly believe that every single person has been traumatized by this unprecedented event that at least in this country, they've done a really great job of trying to cover up and like pretend it never happened and it feels like a fever dream. But it was very real trauma, especially for children. Like Ace had just finished first grade. Like,
right.
What a formative time to then have to spend a year in the house not socializing with anyone.
Yeah, socially and educationally as well.
And so I feel that every person has been affected in this in some way and needs some sort of healing.
Well, it makes sense too that you're talking about these immersive environments that are very complex because like we have a lot of stressors out in daily life. You know, we have environmental problems, fires, social problems, laws, you know, fascistic laws, the pandemic, all kinds of stuff going on. So it makes sense that these immersive installations would be so popular because people want to get away from that for a second.
Exactly.
Like.
And it's not, and Meow Wolf is probably one of the biggest examples of it, but there's a lot of smaller galleries that do that sort of thing too. And pop-up things that'll come around the country. It's starting to
do you mean
grow.
pop up like on public buildings and
like there's installations
outdoors?
that will show up in a city for a few weeks and be like, the closest thing I can kind of think of is like the Van Gogh exhibit, that sort of thing. It's not quite like that, but it travels around a little bit, and sometimes it'll find a city that'll make a permanent installation in. But just the idea of just creating a world and putting it somewhere for people to just interact with, either temporarily or permanently.
I love it too when people just put their art out in public. Like for instance, there's this whole thing about people painting trains that go across the country, and it's almost a form of communication. And these artists are like appreciating other people's work as they're going through their town, that sort of thing. It's lovely. It's like a really big community.
I love that. I love when art and community are blended together. I think that if we have any... so I started saying in the pandemic, my mantra that I feel like I've had since 2020 is the creative and the compassionate are the only ones that are going to survive this. I still feel that way. And I think it's all done through community.
Or help other people survive as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the compassionate part comes in. We're past the time of being silent for things or letting broken systems continue. Like we have to find a way to take care of each other.
Or ignoring feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's been a really big thing the last few years, right? This sort of sociopathic let's ignore feelings.
And it's so pervasive now that you have to be creative to find something outside of that box to actually find healing. Because I feel like a lot of the ways that we're sort of being like mainstream led to deal with things and process things is not healthy. It's not conducive to humanity. It might be conducive to capitalism and profit.
Are you talking about like
toxic positivity?
Pharmaceuticals or
no, toxic positivity.
Okay.
Mindfulness culture in the corporate world. Now mindfulness is really great. But corporations seem to think that you can mindfulness your way out of any sort of stress, and that's not how it works.
Giving you a pizza party instead of like a livable wage sort of thing, and then
calling everybody family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Defending billionaires when they do billionaire things, thinking as though like they're gonna pick you because of it.
Right.
Like you're a lot closer to someone who's unhoused than you're going to be to a billionaire in a mansion any day of the week.
Right.
And ignoring that or having a mask onto it is becoming really like harmful to everyone at this point.
Yeah.
So you really have to like take a step back and think about like what your personal values are if you want to make a difference and I don't know, thrive in this stage of end stage capitalism, I guess.
Yeah. And I think art is a really great way to do that because everybody can have access to that. You know, especially stuff like you're talking about like comics and that sort of thing that's so accessible.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's something I really encouraged with my students too. My last teaching position was as an art teacher. for middle school, and it was supposed to be a dream job. It was not.
I would think that's a dream job.
You would think,
Yeah,
especially since it was for a school that hadn't had an art curriculum in 10 years, and they were like, you can create it. I was like, I can build it myself.
Right.
I didn't realize that they weren't giving me any supplies or support or anything. We didn't have paper until after I had, like, given my notice.
What?
Like, it was, like, it
It's just...
And so now, like, I love educating. I love doing art with kids. And so now I'm a director for a before and after school program. I get to still work with kids. But I don't have to do lesson plans. I don't have to do bureaucracy. So I can just sit down and draw with the kids.
Freer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, having to find...
and I bet the parents of those kids love you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, being able to build a really good relationship with like 20 to 30 families versus struggling to remember every one of my 140 students' names, much less anyone in their family, it feels a lot more fulfilling than I think it would have in a school where I had 140 students and not feeling like I'm reaching any of them or connecting with any of them.
Yeah.
So
Definitely can't connect with any of them without paper.
No.
So,
Yeah. No. That's wild.
Right. They had zero supplies and zero idea how they were going to get them.
We could do tattoos on them. No.
Yeah, right?
No paper, but we could do tattoos.
Exactly. Okay, buy them all tablets then.
Well, or you could play in the mud.
Right.
Mud is good. I'm a mud artist.
That would be fun.
Mud is totally a medium.
It is.
Yeah.
Mud is a medium.
Yeah.
What do you think clay is?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a ceramic artist, so
Awesome.
actually,
Oh, really?
yeah, I take breaks from it for various reasons, but recently I got back into it, and it felt so good to just make something and then squish it.
Yeah.
You know, and just make another one and just kind of squish it again.
That was my first experience with art therapy. In high school, I was part of an internship program at a cancer center where they had a ceramic studio in the basement, and their artist in resident would do art therapy with the patients and their families, and getting to go down there and just make shit with clay with them. And like every year she would do this Mad Hatter tea party, and everyone would design their own teapots and stuff. And it was
teapots are a whole thing.
It was
a whole world.
If I ever come into money, I want to collect teapots and bonsai trees.
Yeah, some of them are functional. There's the functional ones, and then there's the ones where they don't even care.
Oh no, mine was a howling wolf.
Yeah.
I had a gorilla where it came out of his lip.
Yeah. Right. So, is there anything else you'd like to say in this interview? Anything for other sort of radical parents? I would say you're pretty radical. You're radical. You're radical now, but I would like for more of this to happen. This sort of parenting and living and growing up kids.
Yeah, I think just having that representation in general and knowing that there's more and more of us out there, I think is really important.
Yeah.
It can be really, especially when you go to like rural places, it can be really isolating.
Yeah.
So being able to...
Are you in parenting groups, by the way? Do you connect up with other parents like you?
I'm friends with a few other parents.
Yeah.
I'm not really active in a whole lot of groups or anything, but it's, like with my friends who are parents, it's... their kids are queer and trans and neurodivergent too, so we've got a lot of like just commiseration through that and being able to give each other advice for that. But I'm aware that there are groups. I just don't have time.
Well, they require a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of maintenance. Yeah. How about you? Anything else you'd like to say?
Anything else that I'd like to say to wrap everything up?
I think we're all a little bit tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's the only other thing I would have to say is I feel like the kids that we're raising now are gonna be the ones to save the world if anyone does.
Yeah.
I think my kid is a radical person in a lot of sense of the terms, and
And they helped your fiance here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told a story about how Ace is the reason I figured out I was non-binary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ace and a lot of her peers are advocates. They will not stand for injustice. And Ace, when I was a street medic in 2020 with all the protests, Ace came with me.
Wow.
Ace learned a lot about their own values and how to express themselves through being in protest during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And
there's always different roles that people can take in that.
Absolutely. And being
Yeah.
able to see all the different ways. Like I was a street medic. I didn't want to have a voice as a white person in a Black Lives Matter protest, but I wanted to support. And I was part of the leadership, so they got to see a lot of other facets of a protest and how what they value can apply to it. And so they got to, and it was a really supportive community too that encouraged Ace to like have a voice.
Great.
And so they were out on a bullhorn too, yelling at cops.
Like, all right.
It was I'm so proud of my kid. But I feel like that's when I have that, that's really the only time I have hope.
That must be so nice to like admire your child for doing something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be so great.
I think my child is one of the coolest people.
Yeah.
I think I said that too. I think I said we have the coolest kid. I'm
you
be
did.
biased, but we have the coolest kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these kids are ready to make a change, and letting them do that and letting them be their most authentic self, no matter what that is or how we understand that, I think is going to be really crucial for the changes that need to be made for the continued thriving.
Need to be made is the phrase too.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, oh, this would be nice.
Yeah, this would be nice. We
need to be made.
We have to actually start doing things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
It was great to meet you too.
I love meeting radical parents because, well, for one thing, I have a background where, I didn't have such a nice relationship with my parents. So it's just, it's really actually quite healing to meet people like you who are such good parents and so involved, not only in your own family, but also the community. Yeah. Right? Because you extend that love out. I can tell that you do.
I'm from the same sort of lineage, and I'm undoing a lot of generational cycles, and it's it's I lost my train of thought again.
It's important.
It's okay.
It's just as important.
It's getting late. We're this is a later interview today. It was a busy day and stuff. But once again, thank you so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it. You taking out your time here, and of course Ace making an appearance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The cameo from Ace.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I please send me those links so I can link to them.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you too.
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Homework.
Yeah. Got it.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.